Yeah, the Wednesday edition, the football edition of Mr. Irrelevant here in the month of September. We made it, baby. September 4th, 2024. It is Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery, and also brought to you by, as of today, Underdog Fantasy. We'll tell you more about them coming up in a bit, but good to have our new partner, our new friend, the way we will be making selections this football season. Underdog Fantasy on board. Use promo code GOODKARMA as a new user sign up to get up to $1,000 match. Like I said, we'll tell you a little bit more about Underdog Fantasy. Everything we got cooking with them this football season coming up in a little bit. But we have made it. 2 days away from the start of the Green Bay Packers season in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The guys are in the sky as we speak, heading to Brazil. I believe now according to Tyler Herrick on Twitter, who's a big Packers fan, he works in airlines for a living. I believe he tweeted that this is the first ever direct flight from Green Bay, Wisconsin to Brazil, which theoretically adds up. But something I read today that I thought was interesting, as the Packers prepare for their season opener just over 48 hours from right now, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in week number 1. So I'd like to say to you, directly to you, congratulations. You made it. You made it. You've got football tomorrow, AFC Championship rematch between the Chiefs and the Ravens to open the NFL season tomorrow. Friday night, you've got Packers-Eagles in prime time, the only game on television, well, Peacock, on television, coming up Friday night. And then you got a full slate Sunday. And then you've got Niners-Jets, Aaron Rodgers versus the reigning NFC champion, a team he didn't have a ton of success against in the postseason in his career, on Monday night. So we made it. Just a quick programming note for you. We will be with you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week with the holiday Monday. We're backloading the week as we lead you up to kickoff on Friday night. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week for Mr. Irrelevant. You'll find it at varied times, but you'll always find it at 12:30 each of those days in the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Wisconsin On Demand, wherever you get your podcast. And we'll stream it on YouTube, too, the next 3 days, beginning at 12:30. We're with you early on the ESPN Madison YouTube page Friday, beginning at 8 a.m., leading you into Wilde and Tauschen all-day coverage, leading you up to kickoff on the ESPN Madison YouTube page, and we're with you at a normal time on Friday, 12:30 on ESPN Milwaukee. Our guy Tiny Hands is back. Producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, back in the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison, is with us after a day off Friday, a long weekend. Hunter is back. We're going to talk Badgers a bit later because I know he'll have opinions. He'll have thoughts on the 28-14 win for Wisconsin over Western Michigan in the opener on Friday. Hunter, I haven't asked you this in a while, I feel like, at least on the air. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm well rested. Went to a wedding. Won some money at the casino we were staying at. The Buffaloes were good to me, so I'm feeling good.
Buffalo, good.
That was my first time playing in the Buffalo zone, and that might be my spot.
The Buffalo zone.
They had a full zone.
What's that?
Because they had the multiple different versions of the game. So they had like all of the different Buffalo games, and they called it the Buffalo Zone. It was great. It was a good time.
Wow. Okay, very interesting there from Tiny Hands. Hunter Vaughn, who's back with us today on Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery and Underdog Fantasy. All right, so 2 days away. It's got me thinking, what are we going to see on Friday? Because we've talked a lot this offseason and this preseason especially about the idea of, hey, they didn't really play their starters a whole lot in the preseason. And the last time Matt LaFleur did that, and the 2 times ago when Matt LaFleur did that, didn't really play his starters. The season opener wasn't pretty. Think back a couple of years to the season openers against the New Orleans Saints and the Minnesota Vikings. They were ugly. And last year it seemed, with the young team that Matt LaFleur took to the NFC divisional round ultimately, but with the young team that had a ton of uncertainty and a ton of question marks and was really unproven and nobody really knew what to expect entering last season, it seemed like Matt LaFleur turned a new leaf. And he played his starters all 3 preseason games. You saw lots of Jordan Love. You saw a bunch of the young receivers, including, at the time, second-year guys in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, and rookies at the time in Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and the tight ends, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. So Matt LaFleur last year took an approach of, we're going to play our guys. They need the reps. And they come out in week 1 and they smoke the Chicago Bears. That's when we were making the jokes of ownership has been transferred of the Bears from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love because he went into Soldier Field and whipped that booty. Like, he went in and he took care of business. And we thought it would look good. Ultimately, we know how the first half of the season worked out for the Packers. But week one was not a stutter step. It didn't take time for acclimation. It didn't take those guys, to wait until they were hit a few times to be up to speed. They went in there ready, and they took care of business right away. I don't want to say I'm nervous, because I don't think that's the right word. But I am impatiently awaiting what product we are going to see from the Green Bay Packers, specifically on offense, on Friday. I think you're excited to see the defense no matter what, because it's a new scheme, it's a new coordinator. You've got some exciting new pieces, including Xavier Worthy and Javon Bullard at safety, or Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard at safety. So naturally, you're going to be excited, maybe even a little nervous against the high-powered offense, what that defense is going to look like. But with only 3 real snaps, which to me isn't even a drive for the Packers offense in the preseason, I just hope they're ready. I hope Jordan Love comes out and looks like the Jordan Love we ended the season seeing last year, rather than the Jordan Love we began the season seeing last year. So again, I don't think nervous is the right term when it comes to the season opener and what product we will see from the Green Bay Packers. But I am certainly impatient, and I am certainly curious what exactly it's going to look like. I don't expect anything to be perfect because it's week 1 of the NFL season. I don't expect anything to be perfect because you're playing a really good team in the Philadelphia Eagles, who the bona fide Cowboys fan on this panel, Hunter Vaughn, Tiny Hands, has said he thinks will win the NFC East in the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a good team. And Hunter and I have talked about this for a few months, but I want to bring this conversation back because I think it's important to emphasize. And that would be the importance of Friday's game between the Eagles and the Packers. Not only is this a sexy, savvy matchup for a week 1 game with a national spotlight shined upon it, as they take on one another in Sao Paulo, Brazil on a Friday night. No other NFL games are being played that night. That's not why this game is important. I mean, of course that plays a role, but that's not the only reason why. The real reason why this game is important is because I think ultimately anybody with a brain in between their 2 ears realizes these are 2 playoff teams in the NFC, assuming everybody stays mostly healthy, especially at the quarterback position, and things don't go as south as they did at the end of last year for the Eagles. These are probably 2 very good playoff teams in the NFC. Now, we could play out the scenarios, right? Let's just say history repeats itself last year. That means you have the Lions and the Cowboys winning the North and the East, respectively, and the Eagles and Packers are wildcard teams. Could this one game of the 17 ultimately result in the difference between playing as a 5 seed or a 6 seed? Could it ultimately result in you're the 1 seed or the 2 seed if the Packers and Eagles each win their division? I think this game is going to come back to haunt one of these teams 17 weeks down the line. Because these are 2 teams that are a little bit similar, right? When you think about how these teams are constructed, you have a high-powered offense with a high-paid quarterback, Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. And you've got some serious weapons on both of these offenses. Think about A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the newly signed, formerly Giant, Saquon Barkley at running back. Look at the Packers. You bring in the newly signed Josh Jacobs from Las Vegas. You have all these up-and-coming receivers. You don't really know who's going to be the lead dog, but you know you've got 4 dogs in Wicks, Reed, Watson, and Dobbs. Got some good tight ends, too, who are young and upcoming. These are high-powered offenses who might punch each other in the face back and forth for a few hours on Friday night in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This could be what the great Jim Ross, the great wrestling announcer JR, says is a good old-fashioned slobber knocker. And ultimately, the winner of this game could set themselves up for future success when it comes to playoff seeding and ultimately how the NFC is seeded 17 weeks down the line. So I don't want to understate how important I think this game is, because I think the Packers have a lot of important games on their schedule. That includes both the matchups with the Detroit Lions. That includes both the matchups with the Chicago Bears. That includes the San Francisco 49ers, rather, coming to town in late November, playing at Lambeau Field. There are a lot of important games that will ultimately determine if this is a 12-win team or if this is once again a 9-win team in 2024. And Friday is the start of those. I don't view this like I view week 2, when the Packers play host to the Indianapolis Colts. Even if the Packers were to drop that game to the Colts, I think that's pretty inconsequential outside of their final record. Like, that's a game they can drop. When it comes to the Eagles, it's a game I would really like to see the Packers win. Not only is it an encouraging sign of, hey, there's no correlation to starters not playing in the preseason and week 1 success, it's also a feather in the cap of, yeah, what you saw at the end of last season was the real deal. We are the real deal. We've heard all the national praise we've received for the last 6 months. And that's warranted because we've arrived. The Green Bay Packers ideally want to walk out of Brazil Friday night or Saturday morning saying, hey, we told you this was the truth. We told you we are that team. That is the ideal situation for the Green Bay Packers come later this week. CL on the YouTube stream on ESPN Madison says, Philly didn't start their starters either during the preseason, so it's even Steven. So I agree with that, but I guess I haven't studied it, but I know the Eagles started their season 10-1 last year and their loss wasn't in week 1. So there's no direct correlation to, hey, not playing your starters and either coming out flat in week 1 or winning week 1. Whereas Matt LaFleur's track record indicates if he doesn't play his starters a ton in the preseason, he comes out flat. His teams come out flat in week 1. So that's why I bring that up. Now, do I think that is a certified statistic? Do I think the Packers starters' lack of participation in the preseason equals a flat showing in week 1? No, not necessarily. I think this is a different team than the ones from past years. But I am curious to see if that is something we can say about Matt LaFleur, similarly to him coming out flat after the bye week up until last year. It was a game he just typically didn't win as a head coach. So that's why I bring it up, CL, and I'm with you, right? Like, both teams didn't really play their starters in the preseason. Both teams coming into this game incredibly healthy, which just makes for a more entertaining product in week 1. So that's why I bring it up, CL. Go ahead, Hunter.
I think it's also important, to note that the Eagles haven't lost their season opener. The last time they did was 2020. They started that year 0-2, and then they've won their season opener each of the last 3 seasons.
Really?
Yeah, this team, the Eagles start their seasons well. The Packers, there's a certain point where you have to wonder if this is a LaFleur thing, that he can't start his seasons well or get his team ready for week 1. And it's, again, I don't think it necessarily will affect the playoff seeding, but it very well could, given where these teams are expected to be. So this could just be one of those things that we just run into at the end of the year where we're like, oh, well, maybe Matt LaFleur needs to figure out what the heck he's doing to start the season, because had they won that game, this playoff game is at home and not in Philly.
Right. No, I'm with you on that, man. It's an important game. It's an important game. So we will see. I have 2 big questions for the Packers, both for the opener on Friday and for the season overall. We will get to those coming up next. But first, got to tell you about my friends at Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. I always say it. It's football season. It's whiskey season. Going to pick up my a new bottle, Door County Distillery bourbon tomorrow. Looking forward to getting that back on the shelf for football season. If you're a whiskey person like myself, 3 of them that Door County Distillery does really well. I mentioned the bourbon, my personal favorite, but I think the crowd pleaser, the overall favorite, is the 27-time gold medal award-winning single malt whiskey made locally in Carlsville, in Door County. And then there's also a really good rye whiskey, if that's the style you like. All 3 delicious. I've had all 3 multiple times. Love the Door County Distillery whiskey. But if whiskey's not your thing, vodkas, brandies, gins, all the in-betweens, rums, they make them all locally They make them all delicious. They're better than everybody else. They're local. They're affordable. Check them out. DoorCountyDistillery.com is the website to find a huge list of unique cocktail recipes. You like your gin? How do you like your gin? Go discover something new. DoorCountyDistillery.com and available wherever great liquor is sold in the state of Wisconsin. Where in the world isn't Door County Distillery? Back in 60 with two big questions for the Green Bay Packers. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Where in the world is Door County Distillery today? It brings me to Sugar River Pizza, the legendary in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Let's go to the bar. Let's see what they've got. We're here in the beautiful bar at Sugar River Pizza in Sun Prairie. My guy Kyle just mixed me up a cherry brandy old fashioned with the cherry brandy from Door County Distillery. It's delicious. I tell you it all the time. It's proving it right here. The best.
I'll tell you what, Kyle can make a cocktail.
All right, power ranking. Top 3 drinks to have from Door County Distillery. We're going 3-1. Number 3, it's a split decision, but they're both on the rocks. Either the 27-time gold medal award-winning single malt whiskey or my personal favorite, the bourbon. Right on the rocks. Nice Sunday night, end the weekend. I love it. That's number 3. Number 2, the Cherry Cosmo with that green bottle of gin. That thing, it tastes like summer. It's unbelievable. It's delicious. You got to try it. Check out the recipe. DoorCountyDistillery.com. Number 1, it's in my left hand right now with the cherry brandy made with local Door County cherries, the cherry brandy old fashioned. That's my list, but there's no wrong answers. You got to find out for yourself. DoorCountyDistillery.com. Let me know what you think in the comments below. DoorCountyDistillery.com. New month. New commercial. Love to see that out at Sugar River Pizza in Sun Prairie. The mac and cheese pizza over there, paired with an old fashioned from Door County Distillery. Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. All right. Packers season is 2 days away. 2 days away. Which leads me to asking my 2 biggest questions for the Green Bay Packers in 2024. Question 1. The saying is defense wins championships. So who on this Green Bay Packers defense is going to step up? When you think back to the last time the Packers won a championship, it was the 2010 season, 2011 postseason. Think about the members of that defense that had great moments in that postseason run and really the regular season run as well. Charles Woodson was coming off his Defensive Player of the Year the year prior. He was awesome that year up until the collarbone injury in the Super Bowl. Clay Matthews was coming into his own in year number 2 in Green Bay. B.J. Raji had moments at nose tackle. Tremont Williams in the postseason came out of nowhere and made play after play after play. So the big question is, who do we see step up for that defense? Is it finally the year of double-digit sacks for Rashawn Gary? Is it a rebirthing year for Jair Alexander after an injury-riddled and drama-riddled season in 2023 under defensive coordinator Joe Barry? Does Jair Alexander, the highest-paid cornerback in football, get back to playing like the highest-paid cornerback in football? Kenny Clark's coming off a fresh new contract. Can he make some noise in the middle like he's done year after year after year for this defense? You cut a nice check to Xavier McKinney. Can he finally be the safety you've been searching for since Nick Collins from that Super Bowl team 15 years ago? How about Quay Walker? You know the athleticism is there. You know the football IQ is there. Is this finally the year the man in the middle finally puts it all together and makes it look like a smooth product as the green dot wearer for the Green Bay Packers defense? Who steps up for the Packers defense to bring them to championship levels? Because make no mistake about it, what you saw the second half of last Green Bay Packers football season was a true championship contender. No excuses this year. The target's back on their back. This is a team gunning for a Lombardi trophy. And if they fall short of that, at least in the building, that would be viewed as a disappointment. This is a team that was a quarter away from going to the NFC Championship game and playing a team on the road who they beat on the road bad just a couple weeks prior in the Detroit Lions. This team's in it. They're at the top of the NFC. But they need their defense to play like they're also at the top of the NFC in year 1 under new defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. So question 1 for me is who steps up on D. Question 2, it's as simple as this. Is the Packers offense ready to graduate to elite status? We saw some amazing flashes a year ago from this Packers offense. When the Packers hired Matt LaFleur back in 2019, everybody said, this guy's an offensive genius. He comes from the McVay and Shanahan tree. He's gonna chalk things up on offense that you've never seen in Green Bay before. What happened? A few years later, Aaron Rodgers wins his third and fourth MVPs in back-to-back seasons. The Packers win 13 games year after year after year and continue to find ways to innovate. And then they move on to Jordan Love. And it was a little rocky when the playbook was condensed. And Matt LaFleur said, yeah, we just got to let it rip. And let it rip they did. And they were the best offense in football the second half of last NFL season. The word I've used all offseason when it comes to the Packers offense is consistent. And if they are consistently what we saw in the second half of last season, the answer to my big question is yes. Is the Packers offense ready to graduate to elite? The answer would be yes. But we need to see it. And that starts in 2 days against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a new and improved defense and a very high-powered offense. We might get into shootout territory in the season opener. And the Packers offense needs to prove they're up for the challenge because they're going to see some really good offenses this year. They've got Detroit twice. They've got Chicago twice. They've got Philadelphia in the opener. They've got Houston. They've got Miami. They've got San Francisco all on their schedule. Those are good offenses. And the Packers need to compete if they want to be a 10, 11, 12-win team in 2024. So my two big questions for the Green Bay Packers entering the 2024 NFL season is who steps up on D, and is this offense ready to graduate to elite status? iRock on the ESPN Milwaukee chat says, whoa. You said two questions, man. That was 29. I think it was asking questions within the question. Just two questions. Who steps up on D? Is this offense ready to graduate to elite? Appreciate you hanging out on the ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channels. Curious which question you're more curious to see the answer to. Who steps up on D? Is offense ready to graduate to elite? Hunter Vaughn, I go back to you in the Everlight Solar Studio.
I mean, I think it's the defense. Just because if this, with what the offense was last year, if they stay exactly the same for their production, but this defense is improved, the Packers are beating San Francisco in the playoffs. The Packers are potentially going to the Super Bowl with how well they were playing, and it's just that defense at times just couldn't get stops when they needed it, and that's what we saw out of that unit for the last probably, 5-6 years out of them.
Yeah.
So if that improves, then suddenly you're talking about legitimate Super Bowl level team for them and easily being able to win some of these playoff games that they've been losing. So that's where anytime if the defense can improve, I'm going to pick that, because if the defense improves at all from what they were last year, this team wins more games than what they did, and they go deeper in the playoffs than what they did.
Yeah, something that's been brought up a few times this offseason that I've struggled with is the idea of the Packers being a more consistent but same record team. So say they go 9-8 or 10-7 again. If they're right in that wheelhouse, 9 wins, 10 wins, but they look a little bit more consistent. They're still dropping games. Maybe they shouldn't, but they look better. Is that an improvement? I think the answer is yes, but I don't think that's what I'm anticipating. I don't think that's what anybody's anticipating when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, because I just laid out the expectations for you. This is a team that is a real Super Bowl contender and has high hopes to compete for a championship. So if they are a 9-8 team, or if they're a 10-17 team and they're losing games, let's just throw a couple randoms out there, right? Let's say they drop to the Colts. They lose once to the Vikings. They lose to the Lions and the Bears once each. They lose to the Niners and they end the year 10-7. Do we view that as a bona fide improvement? Just because it looks more consistent and they don't have the ugly blunders like they did against the Giants and the Broncos and the Raiders? That's something I've struggled with this offseason, because there are going to be games that they lose that they shouldn't, right? It's just going to happen. That naturally happens in a long-term NFL season. But that's something I'm intrigued to see. The groundhog has arrived. Joshy DiMaggio's head pops up in the ESPN Milwaukee studio, the Grubel office, one call that's all studio, as he takes a break from drafting his 800th best ball team on Underdog Fantasy. Joshy, I go to you on that. If this team has a similar record but looks more consistent, do we view that as an improvement?
I think unequivocally, yes. I think, is there going to be a Tommy DeVito game? Is there going to be a Bryce Young game? Is there going to be a game where they look totally ineffectual against some of the teams they should be absolutely throttling? I think you're going to have some bad losses, games you shouldn't lose. But I think the same thing, I was talking about it on Friday about the Badgers. You just want it to feel better, more consistent, not have the same bugaboos as the year before. We have to remember this Packers team is ahead of schedule. They went through an entire rebuild within one season.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely stuff only the Green Bay Packers can pull off.
Right.
I mean, they completely overhauled their team,
yes.
and they still won a playoff game on the road. They were still competitive with the eventual NFC champions. So you're right on that. But I don't think we look at the schedule anymore. I don't think you can. Right? I don't think in 1265 Lombardi they're saying, well, we're the youngest team in football again, so we probably shouldn't be this good. I think they're now viewing it as what I just said, Joshy, is they're a bona fide championship contender. So if they're 10-7, do we still view them that way, or do they need to win 12 or 13 games to be viewed that way?
I think 10-7 is plenty good enough to be considered still a title contender because you see all the pieces, you see the growth from individual players. Like we're starting to count our chickens before they hatch here a little bit,
for sure.
But
we do that.
Some of these guys are just going to be superstars. That's how this works. There's eventually a guy or two is going to emerge from this mix of young guys they have and are going to be a guy the Packers rely on for a long time. That's like just based on the nature, the early signs we've seen, and that's going to change. And those players aren't going to be that player every single week. Jordan Love isn't going to be an MVP contender every single week. He's still young, still learning, still doing all that, but flashes of it, a higher level of consistency, all matter. There's one thing I've been pondering a lot here since you've been on questions. There is a much sunnier view of the Packers from the national media than there is from the local media. And I'm wondering, are we too close in overanalyzing things that won't end up mattering that much? Or are they not close enough, meaning they, the national media, and not kind of seeing these holes that aren't the glaring holes of, that you would think of, but holes that can be a big issue if they have to cross that bridge?
That is a really good question. Great contribution by you. Well done, sir. My favorite saying in life, and I probably say this more on the radio than I say anything else, is two things can be true. Right? Because we are too close.
Yes.
Are we probably overanalyzing the right guard?
We got a week of content out of the kicker and backup QB.
A week might be an understatement.
You think the Chiefs are worried about that?
Or backup quarterback? Right? No. Right? So, yes, we're too close. But I think the national media a lot of times, Joshy, to your point, is strictly looking at Dallas, San Francisco games. That's the Green Bay Packers. Naturally, progression happens for a young team. They're going to be better. But I think that's probably just the simple thought process from a national perspective. From a local perspective, we're all assuming there will be at least slight progression and we'll have more consistency from the Jordan Loves of the world. But we're probably also too critical, to your point, when it comes to the kicker. How many games will a kicker truly decide? It could be many, but I doubt it will be. When it comes to the progression of a new defensive scheme, is it going to look awesome week one? I'm hesitant to say yes. Will it look better than Joe Barry? That I am not hesitant to say yes to. But overall, will it look, top 5 defense good? Probably not against a good offense in Philly in week one. So, yes, we're too close. They're too far away. The beauty is somewhere in the middle, and that's probably somebody watching this right now, in San Diego, California. That's probably the right, level of confidence. But I think we're all in agreement, at least, between the national pundits, the local pundits like you and myself. This is a playoff team. This is a team that if they peak at the right time like they did a year ago, will compete for a championship. They should probably be in the NFC North race throughout the entirety of the season. And however the chips may fall, they fall, but the Packers will still be in a good position to compete for a Lombardi trophy come February.
There's one thing I don't think we hear because I think we are cautious to anoint Jordan Love just because we know what great quarterback looks like. See the past 30 years of our existence. Sorry, Hunter. If Jordan Love just becomes a superstar, it doesn't matter. A whole lot else doesn't matter, as we've seen with Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, things like that. Like, if he takes that next step, we're back right where we were with Aaron Rodgers. You got a chance because of the guy under center.
Yeah, you got a chance to have a chance.
And I don't think we've kind of like factored that in. We've got really close. Who's going to emerge? Who's going to be the backup offensive lineman? And it's like, if one guy fully develops, all that stuff is background noise and will be nice. It would be great if Christian Watson plays 16 games, has 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. That would all be wonderful, but we're not going to be caring about Andre Dillard, does he have to play, when you have Jordan Love potentially getting into that top tier of quarterbacks.
Yeah, so let's talk about Jordan Love here in a second, but I do want to point out IROC on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat. I'm not saying IROC, that's the name of the user. I just described him perfectly. South Bay, which is a neighborhood in Los Angeles, that's where IROC's tuning in from, gets his Packers info, probably a little too close sometimes, probably a little far away sometimes. IROC is the perfect fan.
Shout out IROC.
IROC, how many games are the Packers winning? That's the answer we need because it's going to be the correct prediction. Let's talk Jordan Love, though, Joshy, because I think that's a good point by you. And Hunter, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. Because the Jordan Love, I don't want to call it the experiment because he's now the long-term solution at quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. But the Jordan Love experiment a year ago was the rockiest roller coaster ride we've ridden in a long time as Packers fans. You're so used to unbelievably consistent and thrilling play from the quarterback position. You go from Favre to Rodgers. You have 7 MVPs amongst the two of them and 2 Super Bowl trophies and 3 Super Bowl appearances and many, many, many NFC Championship game appearances between the two of those quarterbacks. Last year, you get Jordan Love. First half of the season, you're going, oh, boy. This might be a tricky one to figure out. And then second half of the season, he does what he does. And you go, whoa, they've got a guy. They've got a man. They've got a franchise quarterback, and they sign him this offseason, make him the highest paid annually quarterback in the league. Does he get the excuses of being a young starter anymore? Like, let's say he has a doozy of a game, which every quarterback has. Do you chalk it up to young mistakes, or do you go, yeah, he just flat out sucked on Sunday? How do you handle an underwhelming performance from Jordan Love in 2024 when he's getting paid what he is and when the expectations have been raised as high as they have been for Jordan Love? It's a tricky evaluation situation for me, Joshy.
I think I'm willing to afford him another year of growth and getting better and making mistakes and having miscommunication with some of his young wide receivers. I don't think we can extend it any longer than this season. But, I mean, we saw it in the final game of the season in the playoffs. Jordan Love made a pass that he's known since he was in Pee Wee football is a bad idea.
Yeah, no doubt.
And he's not making that because he is incapable of making good decisions or made a bad read. The moment was too big for him in that specific moment, which when you look at it throughout the course of his career, that makes sense. The guy hadn't played competitive football in like 4 years to that point. So I think you have to afford him a little bit of it, but you also have to recognize that it's going to be a common refrain. You're paid $55 million, highest paid in the league. You got to be past those moments. And I think he's going to try and that's going to be a factor in how he processes all of this as well, because as soon as you get paid, people are less willing to afford you excuses. I think the rational amongst us can do that when we take a step back. Like, I'm sure there'll be a moment where I'm cursing Jordan Love, and then in an hour I'll be like, well, I mean, the guy's like thrown like 600 competitive passes in the past 6 years. So
of course, we're going to get too far in our heads. Yeah. Hunter, I go to you with the same question because it is a tricky situation. You went through it semi recently with a guy like Dak Prescott, where it's Okay, how long do we afford him, kind of a little bit of leash, a little bit of leniency before we go, all right, if he's not playing at an MVP-like level consistently week after week, is it worth the money you paid him? And I'm not being negative because I truly believe, and I said this on Monday on our special ESPN Wisconsin show ahead of the Badgers volleyball game, that I think Jordan Love is going to win the MVP this year. I think he's going to win it. Like, I think he's going to take first place in votes for MVP this year. But let's just say he doesn't. Let's say it's just kind of a middle-of-the-road season for what we expect Jordan Love to have. I struggle with the evaluation.
I mean, I've been saying it all offseason. It depends on where this team is in the standings and if they get into the playoffs. Like, the numbers don't really matter at the end of the day. As long as he can figure out a way to win games and win enough games to put them into the playoffs. Like, yes, I get as a fan you want him to be winning the MVP, but in all honesty, that doesn't matter. Is he getting this team into the playoffs? No. Is he willing them into the playoffs? And then, again, crazy stuff happens. The universe is random, and you just got to see what kind of happens. Now, if they keep on losing in the playoffs and he's not showing up, then you can start having a different conversation. But when it comes to like the regular season and that, you have to just expect him to win you games and be the reason you're winning games. And that's been my problem with Dak, is that I don't think he's the reason they're winning games. I think they had CeeDee Lamb and Ezekiel Elliott at his peak, and you have Micah Parsons on defense. Like, you have insane players around you that can carry you through. And yeah, I would hope you can throw for 400 yards every game and look incredible when you have the weapons you have. Where for Jordan Love, it's, okay, the next step is, will this team to wins, will them to victory on Sundays? And you know what? If it's only 185 yards and a touchdown, but you got the W against Minnesota, great. That's fine. Move on and just keep on going and just keep getting W's.
Yeah, love it. Love it. It's go time. Joshy.
This is a Jordan Love adjacent comment. I'm so excited to no longer have to hear it was a bad first half where he only played good 9 games. Like, everyone memory hold the fact that wide receivers literally didn't know what they were doing. They would line up for a play, and 3 guys would run the same exact route to the same spot.
Let me jump in real quick, Josh, because I think what we forget to mention with Jordan Love is the way he elevated the guys around him last year, right? The Jaden Reeds, the Dontavian Wicks, the Romeo Dobbs, the tight ends. Like, we can't lose Jordan Love's credit in the mix of all of that. As impressive as those guys were and their growth was last season, Jordan Love played a huge role in developing those guys and elevating them to look the way they did come the postseason.
Yeah, there's just so many factors to what Jordan Love did in that second half. Like, it's no mystery that the O-line got healthy, started playing their best, and Jordan Love looked like the best quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. It's no mystery that Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Bull Melton all looked like, for games at a time, like absolute superstars.
Totally.
Like, Jordan Love played a factor in that, and they also helped Jordan Love look better because they weren't running the same routes. They weren't going the wrong direction.
Hey, we're gonna have more moments like that this year.
Yes, there will be fewer and further between.
I hope so.
There is a little more. You guys have done this now. You've been through it.
Yeah. I would imagine if that does happen, which I think it will still, you're gonna have to sit your butt on the bench for a little bit because we've got plenty of guys that can go out there and compete and play the wide receiver position really well. Look at the Bo Meltons of the world. I'm curious how they're going to use him this year. He might be a trade piece. We'll see. Anyway, that's a comment for another day. IROC returns with his record prediction. Dare I say 17-0? My guy. Love that. Love that. Hey, we mentioned at the top of the show, new partner on board for the football season. Pumped about this. The NFL season finally here, and our new partner, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more exciting. Join the millions and millions of fans that played on Underdog last year with their Pick'em game. You could win money simply by making sports picks. It's time to turn your takes into cash. I see you in the comments by going higher or lower on player stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, etc. All football stats are on there with the NFL season arriving. Listen to this. You could win 1,000 times your money on Underdog Fantasy, all by just saying, hey, I think this is going to be higher. I think this is going to be lower. You add them together, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Underdog available in over 30 states, including Wisconsin, California, Florida, Texas, and even, Canada, where Underdog Fantasy is available. Underdog currently has a free pick for all customers live right now on Travis Kelce, over under 1 or half reception. If Travis Kelce records a catch, it's a free entry. Free pick you got right on the Underdog Fantasy app. That's only live until tomorrow, though, so you got to jump on. Use promo code Good Karma, GOODKARMA. Good Karma, all one word, no space, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. That is code Good Karma on the Underdog Fantasy app. And you're in the game, baby. Let's make some money together. I'll be revealing my week 1 picks come Friday's show of Mr. Irrelevant. We're making some picks for Green Bay and Philly. Making some picks all weekend long. We'll review those on Friday's edition of Mr. Irrelevant. But great to have Underdog Fantasy on board, and really excited to get you on board on the Underdog Fantasy app. Use promo code Good Karma, GOODKARMA. Get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Promo code Good Karma, all one word. Good to have you all in here. It's Not Fly says, Eagles fan here, first-time listener from Philly. Think the game Friday is a toss-up. See either team winning. I don't think Love wins MVP, but he should be good. And I'll say this. First off, appreciate you listening and tuning in ahead of the Packers-Eagles on Friday. It should be a really entertaining game and a big one for playoff positioning. I think Jalen Hurts is in a similar boat. We saw how good Jalen Hurts could be a few years ago, and especially the second half of last year was more of a come-down-to-earth moment for not only Hurts, but the whole Eagles offense. Like, this is a team that's looking to rebound after kind of a poor performance towards the back half of last season and into the postseason for a team that started off with the best record in football. So Jalen Hurts is going to have a legitimate case at an MVP run here in 2024, assuming with the weapons around him, he elevates those guys and takes the Eagles back to the top of the NFC North. He's going to be in consideration. So good to have you in here. It's Not Fly. Appreciate you tuning in and looking forward to Friday. I do want to talk a little Badgers quickly. We're now 5 days removed from that blunder, 28-14 win over Western Michigan in the opener. Year 2 of head coach Luke Fickell, of course, who was the head coach at Cincinnati, brought them to the college football playoff when it was only 4 teams a few years back. I'm starting to take a deep breath. I'm starting to say it's going to be all right. Now, that's not me saying, like Hunter did all offseason, they're going to beat Alabama in 2 weeks, Wisconsin, when the Crimson Tide come to Madison. But it's week 1. Let's take a breath. If things go south Saturday against South Dakota, who's a good FCS team, then hit the panic button. But I never had the expectations that this was a 10-win team. We gave our record prediction 2 weeks ago. I said they're probably 8-4, 7-5. It's going to take more than 2 years to turn what was kind of a disastrous team at the end of the Paul Chryst era into a true college football playoff contender in the 12-team playoff era. So, look, I'm not hitting the panic button yet because this is kind of what I expected. The Groundhog's back. He thought it was uglier than I did, clearly.
You expected 14 points over Western Michigan?
No, I expected I think I predicted a 20. I thought they would cover 24 points.
I really wanted to pop up because I wanted to needle Tiny Hands here a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Confidence-o-meter on beating Bama. Have we gone over it yet? Are we still at Badgers are taking down Bama in Camp Randall?
So you clearly did not listen or watch the Wisconsin volleyball game day show.
Clearly he didn't. Just get to the answer.
I
didn't know I should be looking for nuggets on Alabama during that.
I think you should watch the content that we have and be a good teammate and support your teammates when there's shows going on.
Stuff.
Okay.
Hunter?
I'm completely out on them beating Bama. That was pathetic. As long as Mike Tressel is the defensive coordinator of this team, there is no shot in hell that they can compete with an SEC team. It is
guys
so
calling for jobs
bad.
after week 1.
It was
calling for jobs.
This defense is horrendous.
That's what I got to treat myself with Monday. I mentioned the show earlier. We did a special show ahead of Wisconsin volleyball at Fiserv Forum from 2 to 3:30 on the radio side. Hunter was already calling for jobs after a week 1 victory. They didn't lose.
Wow.
They won. He's calling for jobs.
I've seen the same thing. I saw it all last season. I've seen everything I
We
need
won.
to from Mike Tressel as the defensive coordinator of the Wisconsin Badgers. And it's not
Joshy,
good.
write it down. Joshy, write it down. You score 2 touchdowns against Wisconsin's defense, you're done. Never come
As
back.
a MAC school? Yeah. That's like 5 touchdowns from a Big Ten team.
2 touchdowns.
They're a
2
MAC
touchdowns, it's over
school,
for Mike.
Strouf. I love
Mike,
the MAC.
look-
I love the MAC more than
Mike.
anybody else. And it's pathetic.
Well, what are you going to say about an FCS school? That you say, hey, Tress, you allow more than 7 points either of these halves, you're canned.
I will give him 10 points against an FCS school. After
10?
what I expect out of there is no reason that an FCS school should get past the 50-yard line against the Badgers.
Time out.
No excuse.
We need to acknowledge something. South Dakota would beat Western Michigan in a football game.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they would.
No.
They're
no.
a better football team. Number 5 in the FCS, they're a good team.
I beg another question here. We're not mad at the offense. That's pathetic.
How many pill slings did you have for TVD on
0.
Friday? 0? Okay.
Oh, he had the one
He
to
could kind of sling it.
yeah, he had one to Kekahuna there along the sideline.
It's not always pretty, but he could sling it a little bit, Joshy.
I mean, I saw enough TVD at Miami.
Okay, that's fair. Sorry, Hunter, go ahead.
We're not worried about Phil Longo offense. None of that. That's good to go.
I'm frustrated with it, but I've seen growth out of that offense. I've at least seen the offense start to form, especially going in through that bowl game against LSU, and even the things that they were doing on Friday. I was like, okay, I see it. They've got to finish off drives, but me wanting them to finish off a drive with a touchdown is different than your front 7 getting gashed by a MAC school. Those are 2 very different ends of the spectrum, and it's not okay. Like, there's no reason that you should just be getting completely worked over by the O-line of Western Michigan. Like, what do you think is going to happen against USC? They're not going to have to throw the ball once. They'll just run it for 600 yards on this defense. It's going to be pathetic. We're going to see TVD out there for 2 drives because the offense, the USC, is going to be on the field the whole time. They're going to go to the triple option. They're just like, we don't have to put our defense out there. God, it's so bad.
I'm glad football is back for one specific reason. I have always, we are coming up with a 1-year anniversary of Mr. Relevant next Wednesday. Hunter has been with me just about every show. I have constantly referred to him as a doomsday fan. That is your first example of 2024. Mm-hmm. We're so back. We are so back. Unbelievable. Mike Tressel allows 2 touchdowns. See ya.
It feels like that. I feel like Hunter's most mad about him having to come to the realization that the Bama flag plant was a bad one the whole time.
Yeah, and he was stuck on that one, too. I mean, I tried to talk him out of that for months. And all it took was Western Michigan scoring 2 touchdowns. That's all it took.
It wasn't just the 2 touchdowns. It's also the fact, and I don't remember if I sent this to the 2 of you, but I found a video where a guy went through and broke down last season's and then against Western Michigan, Wisconsin's special team for field goal block. They ran the same exact play every
I did watch that.
single
I saw that as well,
time. Like, what are we
not great.
doing? Like, just throw something else out there to make a special teams unit be like, maybe they do things a little differently. But you do the same thing every time for a whole season, and then you're shocked that they're going to be ballsy enough at midfield to go with a fake field goal, and you almost lose that game because you get lucky on a punt.
We've effectively pointed out the defensive coordinator now, the special teams. Wouldn't that lead you to the old guy up top?
No, it's way too early for that. What are we doing?
Yeah, like,
I'm not
come on.
saying. I'm just saying.
I'm crazy, but I'm not that
saying
crazy.
When two of your coordinators are doing what you claim to be a horrific job, the worst job ever, should lose their job. Well, I'm looking up top.
I just love that this conversation started with the irritation of 14 points from Western Michigan.
I guess I don't know how you draw the line. Because I'm not apoplectic at all.
Define that for me.
Apoplectic? What does it sound like?
Apoplectic. Some type of disease.
Close enough.
No. Apocalypse? Like the world's ending?
Wait, so it's with an A? It sounded like there was an E there.
Apoplectic.
Apoplectic.
Yes.
Oh, like you're not allergic to an apocalypse?
No.
Anyway,
No.
Josh, to answer your question, I'm not calling for Luke Fickell's head yet because I think that if these aren't the right guys, he's got to get rid of them and then find somebody else. If the second hire is also a bad hire, then that's where I start asking questions of the head coach, because then I don't think he knows what he's doing. So that's why I'm not ready to call for Fickell's head yet. But
boy.
he's got to get a new
ready.
DC in yesterday.
For Saturday ahead of South Dakota, I have the honor of sitting in on ESPN Wisconsin College Game Day with my friends Brad Nortman and Adam Mertz, as well as Hunter Vaughn on the ESPN Wisconsin College Game Day pregame show. That is 2 hours ahead of South Dakota, so a 12:30 show start Saturday afternoon, live from Regent Street in downtown Madison. I might just have Hunter talk the whole time. I just might sit there and laugh. We'll see what happens.
I'd be okay with that.
All right, we got to wrap up. We got to wrap up the show as we always do. Time now for what we learned. Joshy, you got something?
Give me a second here.
All right, we go to Hunter. Hunter, what'd you learn?
This is going to definitely be the pot calling the kettle black right now. But
oh, here we go.
Wisconsin-
More Hunter moments. Here we go.
Wisconsin Badgers volleyball fans need to relax. The team's 0-3 right now, and fans are acting like the sky is falling with how young this team is. I can't even say it with a straight face anymore. Like,
That really lost its oomph once I put you on the spot.
Oh, my goodness. he said, oh, people are getting mad about an 0-3 team, but here I am, angry about a 1-0 team.
I know. It's what I had, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I can make this work, and I couldn't do it.
You know what? Scratch it all. Scratch it all. We're not topping that. Big thanks to Joshy. Big thanks to Tiny Hands. Thanks to our friends at Door County Distillery, DoorCountyDistillery.com, and Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code GOODKARMA, GOODKARMA, on the Underdog Fantasy app. Pick along with me all football season. People are losing their minds. Oh, really? I hadn't heard that one before. We'll talk to you tomorrow beginning at 12:30. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.